Captain Olivia Martinez stood at the observation deck of the UEC explorer ship Harmony. Earth shrank behind them, a blue marble wrapped in peace. The year 2087 marked humanity's greatest achievement, not technological marvels or space exploration, but the end of war itself. 3 decades without armed conflict, she whispered, pressing her palm against the cool glass. My parents wouldn't believe it. The ship hummed quietly around her. Unlike the military vessels of old, the Harmony carried no weapons. Its mission was knowledge and friendship, carrying 20 of Earth's brightest minds toward humanity's first contact with alien life. Dr. Alan Wright joined her at the window. Having second thoughts, Captain? Just reflecting, Olivia replied. The United Earth Coalition took generations to build. Now we're its ambassadors. Alan nodded. Peace through cooperation, not strength. That's what we represent. 3 weeks earlier, the massive Valkyrie ship had appeared near Jupiter's orbit. Their message was simple. We have watched. We will speak. The UEC scrambled to prepare a diplomatic mission, scientists and linguists mostly, with Olivia selected to command, based on her experience leading international research expeditions. Approaching rendezvous point, announced the ship's navigation officer Sam Baker. Valkyrie vessel maintaining position. Olivia straightened her blue UEC uniform. All personnel to welcome stations. Remember protocol. No sudden movements. Maintain. Eye contact if their biology allows it. And follow Dr. Wright's communication cues. The Valkyrie ship dwarfed the Harmony. Its surface gleamed with an iridescent metal unknown to Earth science. No visible weapons, but something about its design suggested power held in check. They're initiating docking procedures, Sam reported. Their technology is interfacing with our systems automatically. A gentle shudder ran through the Harmony as the ships connected. Olivia led her team to the docking bay, heart pounding despite years of training for this moment. The airlock cycled open. The first Valkyrie stood nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors like an octopus. Its head housed 3 large eyes arranged in a triangle, and what appeared to be breathing slits pulsed along a long neck. I am Zorthul, ambassador of the Valkyrie Conclave, it said in perfect English. The voice emerged from a small device at its throat. We welcome humans to greater galactic community. Alan stepped forward, making the greeting gesture they had observed in the Valkyrie's initial transmission. We bring friendship from Earth and the United Earth Coalition. We are honored to meet you. Zorthul's skin flashed blue patterns. You have prepared well. Come aboard our vessel. We have much to discuss. The Valkyrie ship interior was vast, corridors large enough for 10 humans to walk side by side. The walls displayed moving images of what Olivia assumed were Valkyrie worlds. Cities built into mountain ranges, oceans of purple liquid, creatures flying through orange skies. They entered a circular chamber where 5 more Valkyrie waited, seated, around a table made from something resembling crystal. Your first journey beyond your solar system, Zorthul stated, a significant development for such a young species. We've made rapid progress in recent decades, Olivia said, since the global resource crisis forced us to work together rather than compete. One of the seated Valkyrie made a sound like bubbling water. The universal translator rendered it as laughter. Something amuses you? Alan asked carefully. Forgive Zalvex, Zorthul said. Our Supreme Commander finds certain concepts culturally unfamiliar. Zalvex spoke directly. In our observation of Earth's history, your species has repeatedly claimed to value peace only to return to conflict. This latest peace is merely 30 years old, an eye blink. We learned from our mistakes, Olivia replied. The climate wars taught us that survival required cooperation. Indeed, Zorthul said smoothly. Please, share your vision of this cooperation while we prepare refreshment. For hours, the human delegation explained the United Earth Coalition, how nations had surrendered military authority to focus on healing the planet, exploring space and advancing science. They detailed the dismantling of weapons systems, the conversion of military spending to research and education. The Valkyrie listened, occasionally asking questions about defense protocols and emergency responses. Olivia noticed they seemed particularly interested in Earth's remaining military capabilities. When the formal discussions concluded, Zorthul guided Olivia and Alan to what appeared to be an observation platform. Beyond the transparent material, stars stretched to infinity. "Your species interests us," Zorthul said. "We have encountered 17 intelligent civilizations. None chose your path." "We hope to learn from your experiences," Alan replied. "Earth was nearly destroyed by conflict. So you chose safety." Zorthul's skin darkened. "An unusual evolutionary strategy." Something in the ambassador's tone made Olivia uncomfortable. "We chose survival and progress over destruction." "Of course," Zorthul gestured with its upper arms. "We offer technology exchange, medical advances, transportation improvements, communication systems beyond your current understanding." "That's extremely generous," Olivia said cautiously. "We value relationships with developing species." Zorthul turned to face them directly, "Though I must be honest about our assessment." "Please do," Alan encouraged. "Your species abandoned its natural competitive edge for an illusion of harmony." The translator conveyed the words flatly, but Zorthul's skin pulsed red. "You've evolved backward into prey." Silence fell between them. Olivia felt a chill despite the comfortable temperature. "We disagree with that assessment," she finally said. "Competition nearly destroyed us. Cooperation saved us." "A perspective," Zorthul replied. "Time will reveal its wisdom." Later, aboard the Harmony, Olivia called her team together. "Something's not right," Alan said before she could speak. "Their questions focused too much on our defenses, and that comment about prey." "I noticed too," Olivia acknowledged. "But we can't jump to conclusions. This is our first contact with an alien civilization. Cultural misunderstandings are inevitable." Linda Evans, the mission psychologist, nodded. "Their evolutionary path clearly valued different traits than ours. They seem to respect strength and perhaps see cooperation as weakness." "So what do we do?" Sam asked. "Reject their offer?" Olivia shook her head. "We came as representatives of a peaceful Earth. We'll continue the diplomatic mission while staying alert. Dr. Wright, analyze all communications for hidden meanings. Linda, keep evaluating their behavior patterns. And if we confirm they have hostile intentions," Alan pressed, "then we warn Earth." Olivia looked around at her team. "The UEC chose peace, but that doesn't mean we forgot how to protect ourselves." She didn't voice her deeper concern, that perhaps humanity had indeed forgotten after 30 years of peace, just how dangerous the universe could be. 3 days later, the Harmony departed for Earth with signed technology exchange agreements and promises of continued friendship. As they pulled away from the massive Valkyrie ship, Olivia watched Zorthul's final transmission. "We will visit your world soon. Prepare your leaders for our arrival." The screen went dark. Behind her, Alan whispered what they were all thinking. "I hope we haven't made a terrible mistake." Earth's blue sphere grew larger in their viewport, peaceful and vulnerable in the darkness of space. 6 months passed since the Harmonies returned to Earth. The United Earth Coalition had embraced the Valkyrie's offered friendship with both excitement and caution. Today, 5 massive Valkyrie ships hovered over major cities: New Geneva, Shanghai, Lagos, São Paulo, and Sydney. Lieutenant Gregory Phillips stood at attention in New Geneva's Grand Assembly Hall. As a security officer assigned to the Valkyrie delegation, he watched the aliens with trained eyes while appearing perfectly respectful. "They're positioning themselves around the room again," he muttered into his wrist communicator. "Third time they've changed formation during the tour." His supervisor responded immediately. "Keep observing, Phillips. But remember, these are honored guests, not suspects." Gregory nodded to himself. At 32, he was one of the few UEC security personnel with any combat training. Most officers his age specialized in crisis management and crowd safety. Actual defense skills were considered outdated. The Valkyrie moved with surprising grace for their size. Ambassador Zorthul led 4 others through the hall, stopping to examine Earth's historical peace documents. The Antarctic Resource Treaty of 2051, the Final Disarmament Accord, the Charter of Species Rights. Fascinating preservation of surrender documents, one Valkyrie said, its translator creating perfect English with odd emphasis. Not surrender, Gregory corrected politely. Peace agreements, every nation benefited. The Valkyrie's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. Yes, benefits, of course. Across the hall, Dr. Julia Monroe felt the same unease watching another group of Valkyrie examine human medical technology. As head of xenobiology at Pacific Northwest University, she had been assigned to the science exchange team. Your biological resilience interests us greatly, said the Valkyrie scientist called Mevkar. Despite your planet's relative harshness, you evolved without redundant organs or enhanced regeneration. Julia smiled professionally. We compensated with social structures and technological innovation. Yes, tools instead of natural advantages. Mevkar's skin rippled blue-green. Our database shows this is common in species approaching evolutionary dead ends. Julia's smile froze. I wouldn't characterize human evolution that way. No offense. Intended, Mevkar replied. Merely scientific observation. Later that evening, Gregory found Julia at the welcome reception. Both held untouched glasses of champagne. Dr. Monroe? Gregory Phillips, UEC Security. Could I have a word? They moved to a quiet corner while diplomats and aliens mingled under crystal chandeliers. Something's wrong, Gregory said without preamble. They keep asking about our defense systems, emergency protocols, military conversion facilities. Julia nodded. They've been downloading our complete xenobiology database, but restricting access to their own. What I have seen troubles me. How so? They've encountered 17 other civilizations, Julia explained. I found references to species classified as integrated or processed, none listed as allies or partners. Gregory watched a Valkyrie across the room studying the building's layout. I need to access their ship. Impossible, Julia whispered. The diplomatic agreement specifically prohibits. Tomorrow they meet with President Campbell. If there's any chance they're hostile, we need to know before then. Julia hesitated, then reached into her pocket. I cloned Mevkar's access signature while we were working together. It might get you inside their research section, but nothing secure. Gregory took the small data chip. I'll take whatever advantage I can get. The next morning, dawn broke over New Geneva as final preparations were made for the historic treaty signing. The Valkyrie ships gleamed in the early light, positioned with perfect symmetry above the city. Inside the presidential residence, Susan Campbell prepared to meet with Supreme Commander Zalvex. At 68, she had led the UEC through its most peaceful decade. Her silver hair was cut short, her dark skin lined with age and wisdom. Madam President, her aide said, they've arrived. Zalvex towered in the doorway, flanked by 4 guards. His skin shifted between deep purple and crimson as he approached. President Campbell, he said through his translator, this day marks a significant advancement for Earth. For both our peoples, I hope, Campbell replied, gesturing toward seats arranged for the private meeting. Indeed. Zalvex remained standing. Before the public ceremony, I wish to speak plainly. Campbell nodded. Honesty between leaders is essential. Then honestly, Zalvex said, I must express admiration for how completely you've disarmed your species. Something in his tone made Campbell straighten. We didn't disarm. We evolved beyond the need for weapons. An interesting perspective. Zalvex moved to the window overlooking the city. In our experience, species that abandon natural competition invite domination. That sounds like a threat, Commander. Merely an observation. Zalvex turned back. To her. Your species surrendered its right to survival when you chose weakness over strength. The universe rewards only the powerful. Campbell stood, her expression hardening. I think we have different definitions of power, Commander. Across the city, Gregory had used Julia's access chip to enter the Valkyrie ship landed near the Grand Assembly. The alien corridors pulsed with dim light as he moved carefully through research sections, recording everything with his wrist device. The display screen showed images of Earth cities, population centers, water treatment facilities. One screen cycled through what appeared to be targeting information. Defense grid locations, Gregory whispered, recognizing the few remaining satellite systems that protected Earth from meteors and space debris. Why would they need these? He found a terminal and inserted Julia's chip. The Valkyrie characters transformed to English text. Gregory's blood ran cold as he read. Phase 1. Cultural assessment, complete. Conclusion. Minimal resistance expected. Phase 2. Strategic positioning, in progress. Phase 3. Simultaneous strike. Pending command authorization. Target. Full planetary subjugation. Resistance expectation. Limited to regional holdouts, less than 3 months. Resource value. Category B+. Population value. Category C, limited. Combat application. Moderate labor potential. Gregory downloaded everything he could, then slipped back toward the exit. He had to warn someone, had to reach the president before alarms blared throughout the ship. Red light pulsed along the corridors. In the presidential residence, Zalvex received a communication through his personal device. His skin darkened to deep crimson. It appears, he said coldly, that diplomacy has reached its conclusion. President Campbell moved toward her security button, but Zalvex was faster. A wave of his hand activated something that froze her in place. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Claiming what is ours by right of strength," Zalvex replied. "Your people abandoned the universal law of survival. We are simply enforcing it." Across Earth, the 5 Valkyrie ships simultaneously released thousands of smaller craft. The UEC's minimal defense systems never activated. Their codes had been compromised weeks earlier. Gregory ran through chaos as sections of New Geneva began to crumble. The Valkyrie were targeting communication centers first, then power grids and transportation hubs. He spotted Julia helping injured people into a subway entrance. "Doctor! Gregory!" She pulled him down as debris fell nearby. "What's happening?" "Invasion?" he gasped. "They planned this from the beginning. They've studied 17 other peaceful civilizations and conquered them all." Above them, Valkyrie ships released a message that played on every remaining communication device worldwide. "Peace was your choice. Subjugation is your consequence." Julia stared in horror as fires spread across the skyline. "What do we do?" Gregory helped an elderly man toward the subway shelter. "We survive. Then we fight back." "Fight?" Julia looked at her hands, untrained, for combat. "We don't know how anymore." Gregory's expression hardened. "Then we remember. The world burned." 1 month after the Valkyrie attack began, major cities across Earth lay in ruins. New Geneva, once the proud capital of the United Earth Coalition, was now a cratered wasteland. The few UEC defense systems had failed within hours, having been designed for small threats, not full-scale invasion. In what was once Chicago, former Marine Colonel Frank Daniels led a group of survivors through the underground tunnel network. At 55, Frank had retired from military service 20 years earlier when the UEC reduced armed forces to minimal peacekeeping units. Now his old skills were suddenly valuable again. "Move in groups of 3. He instructed the 30 civilians huddled in the dark tunnel. "Stay low, and remember the hand signals for stop and danger." A young woman raised her hand. "What if we get separated?" "Head east toward Lake Michigan," Frank replied. "We have boats hidden at the old Navy pier." Frank had been visiting his sister in Chicago when the attack came. While others panicked, his training kicked in. He organized evacuations, found safe routes, and established contact with other survivor groups. What began as helping a few neighbors escape had grown into leading one of the largest resistance cells in the Midwest. Valkyrie patrol up ahead, whispered Eric, a college student who served as their scout. 4 soldiers checking buildings on Jackson Street. Frank nodded. We'll wait them out. Their night vision is poor in rain. Thunder rolled above them, and Frank silently thanked the weather. The Valkyrie's advanced technology gave them overwhelming advantages, but their biology had weaknesses too. Earth's higher gravity slowed them down. Their respiratory systems struggled with humidity. Small advantages, but survivors learned to use every edge. Kelly Rodriguez slipped through the tunnel entrance, her police uniform torn and dirty. Before the invasion, she'd been a Chicago PD sergeant. Now she was Frank's most reliable second-in-command. Found 3 more families hiding in the hospital basement, she reported. And more bad news. They're setting up a processing center at Grant Park. Processing? A man asked. Kelly's expression darkened. They're separating people. Strong adults go to labor camps. Scientists and engineers get special containment. The rest, she didn't finish. Frank checked his watch, an old-fashioned mechanical timepiece that still worked while all electronic devices were either jammed or tracked by the Valkyrie. We move in 20 minutes. Kelly, take point. I'll bring up the rear. The former Seattle Research Complex, Dr. Julia Monroe worked feverishly in a hidden basement laboratory. The facility had been bombed, but the underground sections remained mostly intact. 6 other scientists worked alongside her, analyzing samples taken from dead Valkyrie soldiers. Their cellular structure is fascinating, Julia told Dr. Paul Green, her colleague in microbiology. Look at how their respiratory cells react to our atmosphere. Paul leaned closer to the microscope. They're using some kind of synthetic supplement to process our oxygen levels. Exactly, Julia said. And when exposed to certain Earth bacteria, the supplement breaks down. She had been studying the Valkyrie since their ships first arrived, and had discovered several biological vulnerabilities. Footsteps pounded above them. Everyone froze. Patrol passing, whispered Amber, their lookout. 2 ships overhead too. They waited in silence until the danger passed. This had become their routine. Work, hide, work again. Julia's team had already sent their findings to 3 other resistance groups through makeshift courier networks. Old-fashioned paper notes and verbal messages were now humanity's safest communication method. I need to get to Vancouver, Julia said once the patrol moved on. The Biological Research Center there has equipment we need. Paul shook his head. Too dangerous. The northern border is heavily patrolled. We need those samples, Julia insisted. If we can develop a pathogen that targets their respiratory supplement without harming humans. She didn't need to finish. Everyone understood what a biological countermeasure could mean. A way to fight back that didn't require matching the Valkyrie's superior weapons. In the Maryland wilderness, Gregory Phillips crawled through mud toward a Valkyrie communications relay. 2 months of hiding and running had transformed the former security officer. His once clean uniform was now covered by makeshift camouflage. His face was thinner, harder. The stolen Valkyrie device he'd taken during the initial attack had proven invaluable. Though he couldn't understand most of its functions, he'd learned to use its detection-blocking features. This allowed him to move closer to Valkyrie installations than most humans dared. Tonight, he had a critical mission. Resistance groups across the eastern seaboard needed to coordinate, but had no safe way to communicate over distances. If he could access the relay's transmission system, they might be able to create a brief window for secure messages. Gregory checked the device readings. 2 guards, standard patrol pattern. He could time their movements and find a 4-minute window to approach the relay. He'd need every second. As he prepared to move, a distant rumble stopped him. He looked up to see flashes of light in the night sky. Something was happening in orbit. Commander Peter Johnson watched from the lunar outpost as Valkyrie ships formed a blockade around Earth. From Armstrong Base, the planet looked peaceful. Blue oceans, swirling clouds. But the commander knew better. Any response to our signals? He asked his communications officer, Rita. Nothing from UEC channels, she replied. but we're picking up scattered transmissions from resistance groups using old radio frequencies. Peter had made the difficult decision to hide the lunar colony's existence when the invasion began. The 100 people at Armstrong Base were now possibly the last free humans in the solar system. What about the mining operation? Chief Engineer Ben looked up from his tablet. We've converted 60% of the equipment to your specifications, sir. But these aren't military-grade materials. They don't need to be perfect, Peter replied. They just need to work. The lunar colony had been established for scientific research and helium-3 mining, not as a military base. But Peter was adapting their equipment into makeshift weapons and vessels. Mining drones were being retrofitted with propulsion systems. Excavation lasers were being repurposed as cutting weapons. Sir? Rita called suddenly. We're receiving a new transmission from Earth. It's on the emergency channel. Peter hurried to her station. A crackled voice came through. To any UEC forces remaining, this is President Campbell. I am alive and establishing a coordination center for global resistance. The Valkyrie believe they've won, but humanity is far from defeated. If anyone can, hear this, respond on frequency Delta 7 using the code word Harmony. Hope surged through Peter for the first time in months. Prepare a secure response and accelerate the equipment conversions. If Earth is fighting back, we need to be ready to help. On Earth, Frank led his group through the ruins of Chicago toward the lake. Kelly moved ahead, signaling the all clear. At each intersection, Colonel, whispered a young man named Doug. Why are we running? Shouldn't we fight back? Frank helped an elderly woman over a fallen concrete slab before answering. Right now we're gathering strength, learning their patterns, finding their weaknesses. But they're so much stronger. Frank's eyes hardened. The Valkyrie made one critical mistake. They judged us by our choice to live peacefully. They thought it meant we couldn't fight. He checked his makeshift weapon, a hunting rifle modified with scavenged Valkyrie technology. They're about to learn how wrong they were. As if to emphasize his words, an explosion lit up the night sky across the city. Someone else was fighting, back too. The Valkyrie had expected humanity to surrender within weeks. Instead, as the first month of occupation turned into the second, resistance grew stronger. The species that had chosen peace was remembering how to wage war. 8 months into the Valkyrie occupation, Earth had transformed. Cities lay in ruins, but human resistance grew stronger each day. What began as scattered survival groups had evolved into an organized rebellion. People who once lived in peace now fought with surprising effectiveness. In the Appalachian mountain base, Frank Daniels studied a hand-drawn map spread across a wooden table. Red marks showed known Valkyrie strongholds. Blue circles indicated resistance cells. Green lines represented secure travel routes. 200 people now lived in this hidden camp, one of dozens across North America. Supply teams returned from Pittsburgh, Kelly Rodriguez reported, entering the cave that served as their command center. They found a cache of medical equipment and brought back 6 more survivors. Frank nodded. Any sign of Valkyrie patrols? None near our route, Kelly replied, but they've increased air surveillance. We had to travel at night and use the river paths. In the 8 months since Chicago fell, their resistance cell had grown from 30 frightened civilians to a disciplined, fighting force. Frank had taught them to move silently, to create weapons from everyday items to set traps and ambushes. Kelly had organized them into specialized teams, scouts, medics, fighters, and support staff. We received a message from the Vancouver group, Kelly added, handing Frank a folded paper. Dr. Monroe successfully developed her pathogen. Initial tests are promising. Frank read the note carefully. Julia's work might be their best hope against the technologically superior invaders. Her research had identified a bacterium that attacked the Valkyrie respiratory system without harming humans. Tell the courier network to prioritize distributing samples once they're ready, Frank instructed. And send word to Gregory. We need his help to coordinate the delivery. Outside the command cave, the mountain camp bustled with activity. Children, too young to fight, attended lessons taught by former teachers. Doctors treated the injured in a makeshift medical tent. Engineers modified captured Valkyrie technology to serve human needs. A woman named Diane approached Frank as he stepped outside. "Colonel, the training group is ready for today's session." Frank followed her to a clearing where 30 people waited with makeshift weapons. Spears made from kitchen knives tied to broom handles, slingshots that fired metal ball bearings, shields created from car doors. "The Valkyrie rely on technology," Frank told them as he had told many groups before. "They've forgotten the basics of combat, we haven't." He picked up a rock. "A stone can disable their breathing filters. A tripwire can bring down a soldier who's never had to watch for ground obstacles on their homeworld." The group practiced for hours, setting traps, moving silently, using terrain for cover. These were not soldiers. 6 months earlier, they had been office workers, teachers, and store clerks. Now they moved with purpose, eyes alert, hands steady. In Vancouver, Julia Monroe injected the test pathogen into a sealed container holding a piece of Valkyrie respiratory tissue. She had traveled dangerous territory to reach this facility, nearly dying twice during the journey. The risk had been worth it. This laboratory, partially intact despite bombing, had the equipment she needed. "How long until we know if it works?" asked her assistant Wei. 24 hours for this concentration," Julia replied. "If successful, we'll need another week to produce enough for wide-scale deployment." Julia had lost weight during the months of occupation. Dark circles underlined her eyes from too many sleepless nights, but determination kept her moving forward. The pathogen wouldn't kill the Valkyrie. She had refused to design a biological weapon of mass destruction. Instead, it would disable their neural implants and respiratory supplements, reducing their technological advantage. "Someone's coming," Wei whispered suddenly, hearing footsteps outside the lab. Julia reached for a weapon, but relaxed when she recognized the special knock pattern. The door opened to reveal Gregory Phillips, mud-streaked and exhausted. "You made it," Julia said with relief. Gregory nodded. 3 weeks from Maryland. Valkyrie patrols are everywhere." He handed her a small device. "I brought something that might help distribute your pathogen." The device was a modified Valkyrie atmospheric sampler. Gregory had discovered that the aliens regularly tested Earth's air for contaminants. With modifications, these samplers could be used to introduce Julia's pathogen into their environmental systems. "Brilliant," Julia said, examining it. "We can place these near their command ships. They'll pull the pathogen directly into their life support." Gregory sat heavily on a lab stool. "I have more news. I made contact with the lunar colony." Julia looked up sharply. "Armstrong Base is still operational?" "And preparing to help us," Gregory confirmed. "Commander Johnson has converted mining equipment into weapons and vessels. They're waiting for the right moment to strike. Beyond Earth's atmosphere, that moment was coming soon." On Armstrong Base, Commander Peter Johnson inspected their makeshift fleet. 20 mining vessels had been retrofitted with propulsion systems and rudimentary weapons. They weren't military craft, but they could fly and fight. "Final systems check complete," reported Chief Engineer Ben. "All vessels operational." Peter nodded. "And the communications array?" "We've reconfigured it to broadcast on Valkyrie frequencies," Rita answered. "When activated, it should disrupt their ship-to-ship communications for approximately 3 minutes. 3 minutes wasn't much, but it might be enough." President Campbell's Resistance Coordination Center had developed a bold plan. Earth forces would launch simultaneous attacks on Valkyrie ground installations while the lunar team created a distraction in orbit. "Everyone knows their roles," Peter told his team. "This isn't what we trained for, but it's what humanity needs from us now." The 100 people of Armstrong Base had spent months preparing in secret. Scientists became pilots. Researchers learned weapon systems. Maintenance workers transformed into tactical officers. They had watched their homeworld burn from the safety of the moon. Now they would risk everything to help liberate it. Back on Earth, Frank's team captured a Valkyrie patrol near the former city of Cleveland. It was their 5th successful ambush that month. The Resistance had learned that Valkyrie soldiers, while physically stronger than humans, lacked adaptability. They followed predictable patterns and struggled when separated from their technology. "Their command ship moved again," said Doug, now one of Frank's top scouts. It's positioning over the ruins of Denver. Frank studied the crude radar image they generated using modified civilian equipment. They're consolidating forces, preparing for something big. Or responding to losses, Kelly suggested. Our last 3 attacks hit them hard. The resistance had grown more effective each month. They now had networks spanning continents. Old technologies, radio, Morse code, even signal fires, had been revived to communicate without being detected by Valkyrie systems. That evening, a DUR courier arrived at the mountain base with an encrypted message from President Campbell. Frank decrypted it using the paper code book each resistance leader carried. It's time, he told Kelly after reading it. Global coordinated attack in 2 weeks. Armstrong Base will create a distraction in orbit while ground forces target communication relays. Julia's pathogen will be deployed at major Valkyrie bases. Simultaneously, Kelly nodded solemnly. I'll alert our teams. Also, Frank added, the Vancouver team captured schematics of the Valkyrie command ship. There's a vulnerable access point in the lower hull. A small team might be able to board it. A suicide mission, Kelly said quietly. Frank met her eyes. I'll lead it myself. Outside, the sun set over mountains that had sheltered them for months. In caves and hideouts across the planet, other resistance leaders were receiving the same message. Humanity had spent decades choosing peace. Now they would show the Valkyrie what happened when that choice was taken away. The final phase of resistance was about to begin. 2 years had passed since the Valkyrie arrived on Earth. What began as a swift invasion had become a drawn-out war of attrition. The aliens had expected quick surrender from a peaceful species. Instead, they faced relentless resistance from humans, who refused to be conquered. Today would decide everything. Around the world, resistance forces prepared for the coordinated attack they called Operation Remember. In orbit, Commander Peter Johnson gave final instructions to his lunar fleet crews. We launch in 30 minutes, he told the pilots gathered, in Armstrong Base's main hangar. Our primary objective is disrupting their orbital defense grid. This will create a window for ground forces and allow Colonel Daniels' strike team to approach the command ship. The 20 converted mining vessels looked strange compared to the sleek Valkyrie ships. Bulky, irregular, clearly not designed for combat, but they carried determination and surprise, 2 advantages humanity had learned to leverage. The Valkyrie don't know we exist, Peter reminded them. Use that surprise wisely, hit fast, create maximum confusion, then regroup at the designated coordinates. On Earth, Frank Daniels checked his equipment one final time. His strike team included Kelly Rodriguez and 5 others chosen for specific skills: an electronics expert, a former structural engineer, a doctor, and 2 of their most experienced fighters. The pathogen delivery teams are in position worldwide, Kelly reported. Dr. Monroe confirms all samples are viable and ready for deployment, Frank nodded. And Gregory? Already inside the Denver perimeter. He'll activate the jamming device when we give the signal. Their plan depended on precise timing. The lunar fleet would attack first, drawing Valkyrie attention upward. Meanwhile, resistance cells worldwide would deploy Julia's pathogen at key installations. As chaos spread, Frank's team would infiltrate the command ship itself. Julia Monroe watched the sunrise from the Vancouver laboratory. The pathogen containers were packed and distributed to teams across the globe. Her work was done. Now she waited, with the rest of her team ready to monitor the effects once deployment began. Do you think it will work? Wei asked, standing beside her. The pathogen itself will work, Julia replied. Whether we can deliver it effectively? She left the sentence unfinished. So many things could go wrong. But they had to try. Her radio crackled. Sunrise. Repeat. Sunrise. The code word meaning all teams were in position. Julia picked up her own radio. Confirm sunrise, proceed on schedule. In space, the lunar fleet launched silently from the far side of the moon, invisible to Valkyrie scanners until they powered their engines. Peter Johnson led from the front, piloting the largest vessel himself. All ships maintain formation, he instructed. Execute approach pattern Delta. The 20 ships accelerated toward Earth, using the planet's shadow for cover. Ahead, 5 massive Valkyrie carriers maintained the orbital blockade, surrounded by smaller patrol vessels. Weapon systems online, reported Rita from her station beside Peter. Energy signatures masked as recommended. The fleet closed distance rapidly. 3 minutes to intercept, 2 minutes, 1. All ships, execute attack pattern now, Peter ordered. The lunar vessels broke formation, each targeting predetermined weak points on the Valkyrie ships. Mining lasers repurposed as weapons sliced through surprised patrol craft. Improvised explosive devices attached to larger ships. The Valkyrie, caught completely unaware, scrambled to respond. On the Valkyrie command ship hovering above Denver, Supreme Commander Zalvex received urgent communications. Unknown vessels attacking orbital fleet, a subordinate reported. Jamming. Signals detected in multiple sectors. Zalvex's skin darkened to deep purple. Impossible. We destroyed all Earth defense capabilities. Signals suggest these are not Earth vessels. Origin appears to be lunar. Zalvex moved to the command center's main display. Redirect defense systems to orbital engagement. Launch all available fighters. As Valkyrie attention focused upward, Gregory Phillips activated the jamming device from his hiding place near the command ship's landing zone. The device, built from modified Valkyrie parts, wouldn't work for long. But it created enough interference for Frank's team to approach. Across the globe, resistance members moved into position near Valkyrie environmental systems and air processors. At precisely the same moment, they released Julia's pathogen into intake vents and filter systems. In Vancouver, Julia watched data flow into her monitoring equipment. Pathogen deployment confirmed at 82% of target locations. Now they waited to see if it would spread through Valkyrie systems as predicted. Frank's team approached the command ship, using the chaos as cover. They wore scavenged Valkyrie environmental suits modified to mask their human life signs. Kelly led them toward the access point identified in the stolen schematics. Security protocols disrupted, reported Lisa, their electronics expert. We have approximately 7 minutes before systems reset. Frank nodded. Move quickly. They cut through the hull using tools designed by the resistance engineers. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit with emergency lighting, a good sign that Gregory's jamming was affecting internal systems too. Life support center is 2 levels down, Kelly whispered, checking the schematic displayed on her wrist device. They moved silently through the ship, encountering minimal resistance. Most Valkyrie were responding to the space attack or sudden system failures across their ground bases. Meanwhile, those system failures were spreading rapidly. Julia's pathogen was working better than expected, carried through Valkyrie air filtration and environmental systems. Across Earth, alien soldiers began removing helmets as their breathing systems malfunctioned. Neural implants flickered and failed, disrupting their tactical coordination. They're vulnerable, Julia told President Campbell via secure radio. Their technology is failing. Campbell's voice came through clearly. All resistance cells, initiate ground assault. Repeat, initiate ground assault. Thousands of resistance fighters worldwide emerged from hiding to attack Valkyrie positions. The aliens, confused and increasingly cut off from their technology, found themselves facing humans who had spent 2 years learning to fight effectively. On the command ship, Frank's team reached the life support center. Lisa quickly interfaced with the alien systems. Uploading the shutdown sequence now, she reported. This will disable life support across the entire command fleet. Suddenly, a door slid open. Supreme Commander Zalvex entered with 4 guards, weapons raised. Humans, he snarled, his skin flashing dark red patterns. You are more persistent than expected. Frank stepped forward. We're more than persistent. We're taking back our world. Zalvex's 3 eyes narrowed. Your peaceful nature made you weak. You cannot hope to defeat us. You mistook our desire for peace as an inability to fight, Frank replied. Humanity doesn't war because we can't. We choose not to because we understand its cost. But when forced to fight for survival, we remember our history. The Valkyrie. Commander raised his weapon, But Kelly was faster. Her shot hit his breathing apparatus, sending him staggering back. The other team members engaged the guards while Lisa completed the upload. "System override complete," she announced. "Life support failing shipwide." Alarms blared throughout the vessel. Frank's team retreated toward their entry point, fighting through disorganized resistance as Valkyrie soldiers struggled with failing technology. In orbit, Peter's fleet had created enough disruption for Earth's surface-to-space weapons to target key Valkyrie ships. The aliens began a disorganized retreat, their coordination systems compromised by Julia's pathogen. "They're withdrawing," Peter reported to ground forces. "Repeat, Valkyrie fleet is withdrawing." Around the world, resistance forces pushed forward against increasingly disoriented alien soldiers. The pathogen had spread through their ranks, disabling the technology they depended on for fighting in Earth's environment. 3 days later, the last Valkyrie ship broke orbit, transmitting a final message to their homeworld. "Warning: humans are not prey. They are predators who chose peace." In the ruins of New Geneva, President Campbell addressed the first gathering of surviving UEC representatives. "We have won our freedom through sacrifice and courage," she told them, her voice carrying across the makeshift meeting hall. "The road to rebuilding will be long, but we have proven our resilience." Frank Daniels stood at the back of the room, Kelly beside him. They had lost friends in the final battle but achieved what once seemed impossible. "Will we return to peace?" Kelly asked quietly. "We will," Frank answered, watching Campbell speak. "But we'll remember how to fight if we need to." On the president's signal, workers raised a new flag, the United Earth Coalition symbol with a subtle addition, a small sword behind the olive branch. Campbell's words echoed across the gathering. "We will return to our peaceful ways, not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to choose cooperation over conflict. However, we will never again be unprepared." The species that had mocked humanity's peace had learned to respect the war we survived and the peace we fought to restore.